They thought humiliating the quiet girl in class would make their day more exciting. But what started as laughter would soon turn into something the whole school would never forget. At Willow Creek High, a place where reputation ruled more than kindness, the first period history class was unusually tense that morning. The ceiling fan groaned, the fluorescent lights blinked in fatigue, and somewhere near the back of the room Maya Lewis sat, silent, composed, but hiding a storm behind her still eyes. Maya had only transferred 2 weeks ago. She didn't speak much, didn't laugh, didn't try to join conversations. That alone was enough reason for people like Ethan Cole to notice her. And when someone like Ethan noticed, it was rarely a good thing. Ethan was everything the school glorified: captain of the basketball team, son of a local politician, and a boy who carried himself like the world owed him admiration. Wherever he went, trouble followed, but people laughed because power disguised cruelty. "Hey, new girl," he said, spinning in his chair, loud enough for everyone to turn. "You from the land of silence or just allergic to words?" A few chuckles broke out. Phones came out. Some were pretending to take notes, but everyone knew what was coming. Maya didn't move. Her eyes stayed on her notebook as if she hadn't heard a thing. But that silence, it wasn't fear. It was the kind of quiet that made confident people uneasy. "Guess she thinks she's too good for us," Ethan added, leaning back. His friends, Noah, Troy, and Zach, laughed too loudly, like trained echoes. At the front, Mr. Carter, the history teacher, sighed but said nothing. Everyone knew his silence wasn't agreement, it was survival. You didn't mess with the Cole family. Not when Ethan's father had paid for the school's new gym. The clock ticked. Maya kept writing. "You know what's funny?" Ethan said, standing up now, swaggering toward her desk. "People who stay quiet think that makes them mysterious. But really it just makes them boring." The room went silent. Everyone's eyes followed his every move, hungry for entertainment. Maya didn't look up. Her hand froze mid-sentence and she slowly placed her pen down. That simple gesture made a few people in the back exchange nervous looks. No one could explain it. But there was something about the way she moved. Controlled, deliberate, dangerous. Noah whispered, "Man, she's got that serial killer calm," trying to joke. But even his voice trembled. Ethan smirked. "What's in the notebook, Maya?" "Love poems. Plans to be invisible forever?" He reached down and snatched it before she could react. A dry tear echoed through the air as paper ripped from its binding. The sound sliced through the silence like a scream. "Oh, look at this, perfect handwriting," Ethan mocked, flipping through pages. "You should frame it. Maybe the art teacher will cry tears of joy." Laughter again, this time louder, sharper. Even those who didn't want to laugh did. It was easier than becoming the next target. Maya's hand tightened under the desk. The knuckles whitened. Her chest rose and fell slowly, but her face stayed blank. Zach threw a balled-up piece of paper at her. "Yo, she's like a robot," he said. "Maybe her batteries are dead." Ethan tore another page, slow, deliberate, making sure the sound carried. He dropped the torn sheet at her feet. "Oops," he said with a grin. "My bad." Clumsy hands. A few phones were already recording. The quiet girl being humiliated. It was the kind of clip that went viral in their small town. Mr. Carter looked up again, frowned, but didn't move. He'd seen this pattern too many times. Those who spoke up against Ethan usually regretted it. But something about Maya's stillness unsettled even him. There was no shame in her eyes, no fear, only patience. She finally spoke, her voice low, calm, almost gentle. "Are you finished?" It wasn't loud, but it carried. Every person in the room felt it. Ethan froze for half a second before smirking. "Excuse me?" Maya lifted her gaze. Her eyes were darker than anyone expected. "I asked," she repeated softly, "if you're done wasting your own dignity." The class gasped. Some laughed nervously. Ethan's smirk faltered. For a moment his confidence cracked. Then he laughed, stepping closer. "You've got guts, new girl. Let's see how far that gets you." He slammed her notebook on the desk, leaning in so close his shadow covered her completely. "You better learn quick, this is my school." Maya's eyes didn't flinch. "Not for long," she said. The bell rang. But this time no one moved. The air was electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. Mr. Carter mumbled something about a staff meeting and hurried out. Ethan watched Maya in silence for a moment, then turned to his friends. "After school? We'll teach her a lesson she won't forget." Maya heard it. She didn't react. But inside she already knew. This wasn't over. And what they didn't know was that the quiet girl they wanted to break wasn't the one who'd end up shattered. The afternoon sun bled through the windows of Willow Creek High, coating the hallways in a golden haze that couldn't hide the tension boiling beneath it. Rumors had already spread long before the final bell rang. Ethan Cole was going to put the new girl in her place. By the time last period ended, half the school knew. Some waited in the hall, pretending to pack their bags slower than usual, while others had their phones ready, hungry for chaos. Maya walked down the corridor calmly, her backpack over one shoulder, her notebook repaired with a strip of clear tape. Every step she took echoed against the tiles like a countdown. When she entered the history room again, the desks were slightly rearranged. Ethan sat on top of one near the front, spinning a basketball lazily in his hand. His friends leaned against the walls, pretending to talk casually, but their eyes tracked her every move. "There she is," Ethan said loudly. "The famous Maya Lewis. I almost thought you'd run home crying." Maya placed her bag on her desk and sat down. "If that's what you were hoping for, I'm sorry to disappoint you." The laughter from his friends was instant, but not genuine. It had the sharpness of fear disguised as fun. Ethan stood, tossing the basketball aside. "You know, I don't like being embarrassed in front of the whole class. You made me look weak this morning." She didn't even glance at him. "You didn't need my help for that." The whole class gasped. One of Ethan's friends whispered, "She's insane." Ethan's grin tightened. He took a slow step forward. "You think you're clever, huh? You think you can talk to me like that? I think you should sit down," Maya said quietly. That single sentence stopped him for a moment. Not because of the words, but because of the way she said them. Calm, certain. It was the tone of someone who didn't see him as a threat. He shoved her notebook off the desk. It hit the floor with a flat thud. The sound echoed in the quiet classroom. "Pick it up," he ordered. Maya looked at the notebook, then at him. No, Ethan's face darkened. He grabbed her collar and yanked her up, slamming her against the wall. Gasps filled the room. Phones came up, lenses glittering like eyes in the dark. "Now what?" he hissed. "You still think you can talk big?" Her eyes met his, steady, cold, and unblinking. "You shouldn't have done that." Before anyone could understand what happened, her hand shot up, grabbing his wrist. She twisted, using his own strength against him. His balance broke, and within a second, Ethan stumbled forward, crashing onto a desk. The sound made the windows tremble. "Holy, did she just—" someone whispered. Ethan groaned, clutching his arm, shock replacing arrogance. The room was frozen. No one breathed. Maya stood perfectly still, her expression unreadable. She adjusted her collar and took a step back. "Don't touch me again." The silence was alive, tense, electric, filled with disbelief. Ethan's friends stared, their confidence evaporating. But humiliation burns hotter than pain. He pushed himself up, eyes blazing. "You think this is over?" "You're dead, Lewis," he charged again, faster this time, fists clenched. The class screamed. But Maya sidestepped, her movement swift and effortless. His punch hit empty air. Her knee rose sharply, connecting with his stomach. The sound of the impact sucked the air out of the room. Ethan crumpled, coughing. Desks toppled over. Books fell. Maya stepped back again, breathing evenly, her voice steady. "Walk away," but pride wouldn't let him. It never does. His friends, Noah and Troy, exchanged a quick look. Then, driven by loyalty or fear, they rushed forward. Maya moved before they reached her. Noah's arm came swinging. She ducked, grabbed his wrist, and pivoted. He hit the ground hard, the air rushing out of him. Troy tried next, but she blocked his swing and kicked his leg out from under him. He went down with a cry. 3 of the school's loudest boys were sprawled across the floor. The room exploded with screams, laughter, and shouts. Every phone was pointed at her. The quiet girl no one noticed had just shattered the order of the school. And outside that classroom, the sound of chaos began to travel like wildfire down the hallway. Within minutes, the video was everywhere. Uploaded, shared, reposted. The caption spread faster than any rumor ever had. "Ethan Cole gets destroyed by new girl." By the time the principal's assistant burst into the room, it was already too late. The clip had thousands of views. Maya stood there silent in the middle of the mess, her breathing calm, her eyes unreadable. The boys groaned around her. The teacher finally appeared, shouting questions that no one answered, but the truth had already escaped. It was in every phone, every message, every whisper echoing through the school. And while everyone else was talking about what just happened, Maya knew something else was coming. Because people like Ethan didn't lose quietly. That afternoon in the office of Principal Rowan, the storm began to gather. Maya was told to wait in the hallway. Through the glass, she could see Ethan sitting beside his father, Charles Cole, a man whose name opened every door in the city. His suit was pressed, his expression calm, but his eyes burned with power and disdain. Inside, voices rose. Mr. Cole's words were sharp and controlled. "My son was assaulted. I expect this girl to be expelled immediately." Principal Rowan tried to interject, his hands trembling. "Sir, there are conflicting reports. Several students. Videos can be edited." Cole interrupted, his tone cold. "What matters is that my son is injured. You know what my donations mean to this school." Ethan sat silently, his arm in a sling, glancing at Maya through the glass. His stare wasn't anger anymore, it was humiliation wrapped in hatred. Maya sat outside, hands folded, heart steady. She could hear fragments of every word. And when the office door opened, she already knew what was coming. "Maya," Principal Rowan said heavily, "please come in." Inside, 3 pairs of eyes landed on her. The principal's, the teacher's, and Ethan's father's. Mr. Cole's voice was low but firm. "Young lady, you've caused enough damage. You think you can waltz into this school and attack my son? You're finished here." Maya met his stare. "He attacked me first," Cole laughed, short and cold. "Do you have proof?" She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, a sound buzzed from the principal's phone. He frowned, glanced at the screen, and pressed play. The clip was unmistakable. Ethan grabbing her collar, her turning, him crashing into the desk. The footage was raw and shaky, but it was clear. The room fell silent. Mr. Cole's jaw tightened. Principal Rowan looked up slowly. "It appears there's more to this than we were told." Maya said nothing. She didn't need to. Outside that office, the rest of the school was exploding with commentary. Students who had never spoken to her were calling her a hero. Others whispered that she'd gone too far. But one thing was clear. No one could ignore her anymore. Ethan's father stood, his calm cracking. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You'll regret this, girl." Maya's eyes didn't waver. "Maybe," she said softly, "but not as much as he already does." And that was the moment the war truly began. Not between students, but between truth and power. Because the man who had always controlled the school from behind his checkbook had finally met someone who couldn't be bought or intimidated. And she wasn't done fighting. The storm hadn't peaked yet, it was only beginning to thunder. The next morning, Willow Creek High would wake up to a headline that would change everything. By morning, the entire town of Willow Creek was buzzing. Screens glowed with the same headline across every feed. "Rich kid bullies girl gets beaten and exposed." Every hallway at the school pulsed with whispers. She flipped him like a pro. "Did you see his face after?" "I heard she's being expelled." When Maya walked through the front doors, the noise dimmed for a moment, as if the air itself held its breath. Students turned, some in awe, others in fear, a few with admiration hidden behind nervous smiles. She walked straight, unhurried. The same girl who had once blended into the walls was now the center of gravity for the entire school. But not all eyes were friendly. Ethan's group, his loyal shadows, watched her from the stairwell. They weren't laughing now. They were plotting. "His dad's furious," whispered Troy. "He's going after the school board." Ethan, standing between them, said nothing. His face was pale, his pride bleeding through clenched fists. "She humiliated me," he murmured. "My father won't let this go, and neither will I." Across the building, Maya sat quietly at her desk, pretending to read. But her thoughts were louder than the room itself. She could feel it, the shift. The way people avoided her gaze. The way teachers whispered in staff rooms. She wasn't invisible anymore, but neither was she safe. At lunch, her phone vibrated with hundreds of notifications. A new tag was trending, touting "Stand with Maya." Videos, duets, commentary. Some praised her for standing up. Others accused her of violence, and among all that chaos, a message arrived from an unknown number. "Meet me after school. Gymnasium. Let's settle this." No name. But she didn't need one. The day dragged like a slow countdown. When the final bell rang, Maya knew the trap was already waiting. Still, she went. The gym was dim, the echo of her footsteps swallowed by silence. The heavy doors shut behind her with a metallic click that sounded too final. From the shadows, Ethan appeared, flanked by Troy and Noah. His left arm was still wrapped in bandages, but his smirk had returned. "You came alone," he said. "Brave or stupid?" "I came because I'm tired," Maya replied softly. "You want to fight? Fine, but it ends today." He circled her slowly. "You really think anyone's going to believe you're the victim after this? My father's already fixing everything. You're just a story that'll fade." Maya's voice didn't rise, but it cut through his arrogance like glass. "Stories fade. Truth doesn't." Ethan's grin vanished. "Get her!" Troy lunged first. Maya sidestepped, twisted his wrist, and sent him sprawling. Noah swung next, clumsy but angry. She ducked and swept his legs from under him, his back slamming against the floor. Ethan hesitated, but rage won over reason. He charged. Maya stepped aside, pivoted, and pushed him forward. His body hit the padded wall with a hollow thud. He groaned, but before she could step back, he caught her off guard with a shove. She stumbled. For a moment, their eyes locked. Hers filled with fire, his with something that looked like desperation. Then from the doorway, a commanding voice thundered. "What is going on here?" Everyone froze. A woman in uniform stood at the entrance, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, presence heavy as iron. Her badge glinted faintly under the flickering lights. "Maya," she said, her tone calm but unyielding. "Step away," Ethan blinked. Who are you?" The woman's gaze snapped to him. "I'm Captain Elena Lewis, Maya's mother." The gym went silent. Troy backed away. Noah stopped breathing. Elena's boots echoed as she walked across the floor. "3 boys against 1 girl. You call this bravery?" Ethan stammered. She started it." She cut him off. "Save your excuses. I've seen bullies try to dress up their fear as control. You're not new to me." Her eyes hardened as they met his. "You picked the wrong girl." For the first time, Ethan stepped back. There was something in her tone, an authority that didn't just come from a badge, but from years of facing down real threats. Maya's breathing was uneven. "Mom, I didn't want—" Elena placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "I know, sweetheart. But they did. And now it's over." Within minutes, the principal and 2 officers arrived, summoned by the noise. The boys were escorted out, protesting, denying, shouting. But no one was listening anymore. By the next morning, the videos had multiplied. Footage of the gym encounter spread faster than the first fight. Students shared it. Reporters began calling. And by afternoon, it was everywhere. Officer's daughter defends herself against bullies. Principal Rowan called Maya and her mother into his office. His face was drawn and pale. "The school board is in chaos," he admitted. "Mr. Cole is threatening to pull all funding. But parents are demanding we protect you." Elena folded her arms. "Then stop hesitating." "Tell the truth," he hesitated, voice trembling. "You don't understand the kind of influence," Maya interrupted softly. "We do. We just don't care." Outside, chants echoed through the schoolyard. Dozens of students had gathered, holding signs, handmade, crooked, loud. "Justice for Maya. End the cover-ups." Ethan watched from the second-floor window. His father stood behind him, phone in hand, whispering instructions. But no amount of calls or money could stop what was happening. The internet had already chosen its side. That night, Mr. Cole sat in his office surrounded by half-empty glasses and the glow of his computer screen. Comment sections were flooded. His son's name was trending for all the wrong reasons. For the first time in his life, Charles Cole realized that the world he controlled through fear and influence was slipping through his fingers. And outside his mansion gates, reporters had begun to gather. In the middle of it all, Maya sat at home, her head resting on her mother's shoulder. For once, she wasn't thinking about survival or self-defense. She was thinking about how fast a lie could spread and how sometimes truth could spread faster. But the storm hadn't passed yet. The Cole family was preparing for a counterattack, one that wouldn't just target Maya, but her entire family. And when power feels cornered, it doesn't fight fair. The next day, the headlines changed again. New evidence. Maya Lewis has a violent past. Leaked records suggest troubled history. Except Maya had no such history. Someone was rewriting her story. And this time, the war would move far beyond the classroom walls. By sunrise, the lies had already taken root. News channels ran segments with fabricated footage, Anonymous sources and photos taken from angles that made Maya look angry, dangerous. The same students who once cheered her name were now whispering again, but this time their eyes were unsure. In the cafeteria, the whispers were louder than the clatter of trays. I heard she got kicked out of her last school. My cousin said her mom used her position to cover for her. She's not a hero, she's manipulative. Maya sat alone at a corner table, her untouched lunch in front of her. Every few seconds she caught fragments of words like crazy or violent. The air was thick with rumors, poison disguised as gossip. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Every headline, every tag was more distorted than the last. Exposing Maya Lewis was trending. When she walked into class, Mr. Carter tried to smile at her, but the look in his eyes gave it away. Fear. The kind that comes from being told to stay silent. By mid-morning, she was summoned to the principal's office again. The air outside the door was cold. Inside sat Principal Rowan, his expression tired, and across from him, Charles Cole, perfectly calm, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. "Miss Lewis," Rowan began, avoiding her gaze. "Some concerning information has surfaced regarding your background." Maya's jaw tightened. "None of it's true." Mr. Cole folded his hands, the picture of composure. "Then you won't mind an investigation?" Elena, sitting beside her daughter, leaned forward. "We mind when lies are treated as truth because of who spreads them." Cole's eyes flicked to her uniform. "Officer or not, Captain, you know how reputation works. The public doesn't wait for proof. They decide first." "That's the problem," Elena said quietly. "You think you can buy people's minds the way you buy influence." Cole smiled faintly. "It's not about buying. It's about understanding how easily fear spreads. Your daughter's story ends here. You can fight, but you'll lose everything trying." The silence that followed was heavy, but in that silence, something else was happening far beyond that room. An investigative reporter named Clara Dawson sat in her apartment miles away, scrolling through financial records she'd received anonymously. Donations from Cole Enterprises to Willow Creek High, transfers disguised as facility improvements, but the numbers didn't match. Huge sums were missing, redirected into accounts owned by subsidiaries under Mr. Cole's name. Her pulse quickened. She knew a cover-up when she saw one. And this wasn't just about bullying. It was corruption, money laundering, power. She opened a blank document and started typing. Funding or manipulation? The hidden truth behind Willow Creek High. By afternoon, the article went live. Within minutes, it caught fire online. Parents, teachers, and students flooded the comments. The hashtags changed again. Cheer Justice for Maya returned stronger than before. Expose Cole followed right behind it. At school, phones buzzed in every pocket. Screens lit up in classrooms. Even Principal Rowan's phone vibrated mid-sentence. He read the headline, paled, and looked up slowly at Mr. Cole. "Is this true?" Cole's calm cracked for the first time. "Fake news," he snapped, standing. "You think I'll let some blogger destroy my name?" But outside, parents were already arriving, demanding explanations. Reporters gathered by the gates. Teachers refused to cover for lies any longer. The walls were closing in. That afternoon, the school called for an emergency assembly in the auditorium. Rows of students filled the seats, buzzing with restless energy. On stage sat Principal Rowan, several board members, Captain Elena Lewis, and a red-faced Charles Cole beside his son. When the murmurs died down, Rowan spoke into the microphone, his voice shaking. "We are here to address the recent incidents involving our students and the integrity of this institution." But before he could continue, a voice from the crowd called out, "Tell the truth." Then another, "Stop protecting bullies." The room erupted. Phones were raised high, streaming live. Charles Cole stood, his patience gone. "Enough of this nonsense. My family has supported this school for years. You're all ungrateful." A mother stood up near the front row. "Supported or controlled?" she demanded. "Our children aren't props for your son's ego." The crowd roared with agreement. Elena rose, her voice calm but commanding. "Let him speak if he has nothing to hide." Cole's face darkened. "You think this mob decides what's right? This is why order collapses. You give one loud girl a camera and the world loses its mind." The room's energy shifted instantly. Dozens of students began chanting Maya's name. "Maya! Maya! Maya!" On stage, Ethan's composure shattered. He looked out at the crowd, at faces once filled with admiration, now filled with disappointment. His jaw trembled. "Stop," he muttered, but the chant grew louder. His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ignore them, son." But Ethan's voice cracked. "I can't." He turned to his father, his eyes glistening. "You said we just had to stay quiet and it would go away. But it's not going away, is it? Because it's all true." Gasps spread through the auditorium. Charles froze. "Ethan, don't," but Ethan stepped away from him, facing the microphone. "I bullied her. I grabbed her, I tore her notebook, I hurt people. And every time someone tried to tell, Dad made it disappear. He said I had to be strong, that if people stopped fearing me, I'd lose everything." He swallowed, voice trembling. "I was scared of disappointing you. I thought power meant respect." The entire auditorium went silent except for the soft hum of feedback from the microphone. Elena closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again, steady. Principal Rowan, stunned, leaned forward. "Mr. Cole, is this true?" Cole's voice was a hiss. "He's confused. He doesn't—" Before he could finish, the doors to the auditorium swung open. Clara Dawson stepped in, escorted by 2 officers and holding a thick folder. "I believe you'll want to see this," she said. Financial statements, emails, recordings. She placed them on the table before the school board. Everything Mr. Cole tried to hide. The room exploded with noise, students shouting, parents gasping, reporters filming. Rowan stood, his voice rising above the chaos. "This meeting is adjourned. The matter will be investigated immediately by the authorities." As officers approached Charles Cole, he didn't resist. His arrogance had drained away, replaced by something hollow. Fear. He turned toward Maya, eyes burning with something between fury and disbelief. "You think this changes anything?" She met his gaze calmly. "It already has." That night the news broke nationwide. Businessman arrested in Willow Creek scandal. Teen's courage exposes corruption and abuse of power. But even then, the story wasn't over. Because while justice was being served in courtrooms and headlines, Maya still had to face the hallways of Willow Creek High, where power had fallen. But scars remained, and somewhere deep inside, she wondered if victory could ever erase the things she had seen, the things she had felt. But what she didn't yet know was that her story had just begun to inspire hundreds of others who'd been silent too long. The courtroom was overflowing. Reporters crowded the back, cameras flashing every few seconds. Parents, teachers, and students packed the benches, whispering names, trading rumors, waiting for the moment that would decide everything. At the front, Maya sat beside her mother, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She had never imagined her quiet life would lead here, to a place where the truth had to be spoken in front of the entire city. Beside her, Captain Elena Lewis sat upright in her pressed uniform, calm but unrelenting, her eyes fixed on the man across the room, Charles Cole, once untouchable. Now a defendant. The judge's gavel struck sharply, cutting through the murmur. "This court is now in session. The people versus Charles Cole and Ethan Cole, regarding charges of corruption, assault, and obstruction of justice." Every eye turned to the man in the dark suit. Charles lifted his chin, pretending confidence, but his face was pale. His fingers drummed nervously on the table. Ethan sat beside him, staring down at his shoes, his arrogance long gone, replaced by exhaustion and regret. The prosecutor rose first. "Your Honor, this is not merely a case of a school altercation. This is about how power was used to protect cruelty, how wealth was weaponized against truth." The victim, Maya Lewis, did what the adults around her refused to do. She stood up. Maya kept her eyes on the table, her breath shallow. The prosecutor turned toward the jury, and for that she was punished, lied about, and nearly destroyed by those who feared what honesty could expose. The defense lawyer rose, smooth and rehearsed. "Your Honor, this is nothing more than teenage drama inflated by the internet. My client's donations to the school are evidence of his commitment to education, not corruption. These accusations come from emotion, not evidence." Before the judge could respond, the prosecutor held up a flash drive. "Then let's see the emotion in these files." Screens lit up around the courtroom as video after video played. The classroom fight, the gym confrontation, the leaked recordings of Cole's threats to the school board, and finally, the financial transfers Clara Dawson had uncovered. The room was silent except for the sounds from the videos, Ethan's voice mocking, desks crashing, and then the twist of Maya's calm voice saying, "Are you finished?" When the final clip ended, you could hear the reporter's cameras clicking like rain. Charles Cole stood abruptly. "You don't understand how things work. Those records were private. That money was stolen," the prosecutor interrupted. "And your own son's testimony will confirm it." All heads turned to Ethan. He didn't look at his father. "It's true," he said quietly. "Everything." Charles's voice broke. "Ethan, stop talking. You don't know what you're saying." Ethan turned, eyes red. "I know exactly what I'm saying. You taught me to lie, to cover up, to hurt people just to feel powerful. You said weakness is death. But you were wrong. The only thing dying here is your reputation." A stunned hush fell over the room. Charles opened his mouth, but no words came out. The weight of years of manipulation, the empire of fear he'd built, was collapsing right there in front of everyone. The judge cleared his throat. "Enough, I have heard enough." He looked at the jury, who needed no deliberation. "Charles Cole, this court finds you guilty on all counts: corruption, obstruction, and conspiracy. You are hereby sentenced to 15 years in state prison." Gasps filled the courtroom. Some clapped. Some simply sat frozen. The judge turned next. "Ethan Cole, for your role in the assaults and intimidation, and in light of your confession and cooperation, this court orders placement in a juvenile rehabilitation program for 2 years. You will also undergo psychological counseling." Ethan nodded slowly, tears streaking down his face. "I understand." Charles slumped back in his chair, his power gone, his silence heavier than any sentence. The judge continued, his voice firm. "To Willow Creek High School, for your negligence in protecting your students and enabling abuse, you are ordered to issue a formal public apology and implement mandatory anti-bullying and ethics programs." Then finally, his tone softened. "And to Maya Lewis, for your courage, your restraint, and your integrity in the face of intimidation, you have reminded this community what justice truly looks like." Maya's throat tightened. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. When the gavel struck for the last time, the courtroom erupted. Parents hugged their children. Reporters rushed forward. Students cried openly, shouting her name like a chant. "Maya! Maya!" "Maya." She turned to her mother, whose eyes glistened. "You did it," Elena whispered. "You did what most adults can't." Maya managed a trembling smile. "We did it." Outside the courthouse, the world was waiting. Cameras, microphones, posters. The same people who had doubted her now wanted to hear her speak. But instead of grand speeches or tears, she simply looked up at the sky. It was a soft blue, free of clouds, the first calm she'd felt in months. Days turned into weeks. Willow Creek High transformed. The bullies had lost their thrones. The fearful had found their voices. And the walls that once echoed with taunts now carried messages of unity. A large banner hung above the school gates. A safe school for everyone, because of courage. On the morning of the new term, students gathered for a flag-raising ceremony. The air was fresh, the crowd quiet with anticipation. Principal Rowan stepped up to the microphone, his tone humble. "Today we begin again. For too long we allowed silence to rule. We failed one of our own, and for that we apologize to Maya and to every student who ever felt unseen." He turned toward her and gestured. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya walked up to the stage dressed in her neat uniform, her posture straight but her eyes soft. When she began to speak, her voice wasn't loud, but it carried with perfect clarity. "There was a time when I thought silence was safety," she said, "that if I stayed quiet no one could hurt me. But I learned that silence is what gives power to those who abuse it. Speaking up isn't easy. It costs you friends, comfort, and sometimes peace, but it also builds something bigger, change." The students watched, rapt. Some were already crying. "I'm not here to be called brave or strong," Maya continued. "I'm here because I want every one of you to remember that you matter. No one deserves to be humiliated for who they are, and if you ever see someone being hurt, don't look away. One voice is powerful, but many together can move the world." Her mother, watching from the front row, smiled through tears. The crowd erupted once more. Students raised their fists, their phones, their voices. Chants of "no more fear" rippled across the courtyard. After the ceremony, Maya stepped down from the stage. Students she barely knew hugged her, thanked her, cried. The same hallways that once felt suffocating now felt alive. That afternoon, when she returned home, a letter waited on her desk. The handwriting was messy but familiar. Maya, I don't deserve to ask for forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying. Every day here is a mirror I can't escape from. I see what I did and what it turned me into. I was wrong. You didn't humiliate me, you saved me from becoming worse. I'm sorry. Ethan, she stared at the letter for a long time. Then she folded it gently and placed it in a drawer. Forgiveness didn't erase pain, but it ended the cycle, and that, she knew, was the truest victory. That evening, the sun dipped low over Willow Creek, painting the sky gold and red. Maya stood on her balcony, the wind brushing against her hair. Her mother joined her, 2 mugs of tea in hand. You're quiet, Elena said softly. I'm just thinking, Maya replied, about how everything started with a notebook and a few cruel laughs. Elena smiled faintly, and ended with a city remembering what courage looks like. Maya nodded. It's not really the end, though. No, her mother agreed. It's the beginning. They stood there together, the world below them alive and changed. Maya looked out at the horizon. Mom, she said, what do you think happens next? Elena's eyes sparkled. Whatever you want, sweetheart. You've already written the first chapter. The night settled softly around them. Somewhere far away, a chorus of phones pinged with a new tag spreading online. Speak for the silent, it wasn't just a trend anymore. It was a movement, and it all began with one girl who refused to stay quiet.